Now we are back at the MLK Memorial. It took us 6 months, just left the cherry blossoms. 6 months later, now we're at the MLK Memorial. Now we know we're taking you on a tour around the city, and so we could not go anywhere else without stopping here first. We just had a dedication about 2 weeks ago, and so now we're here just to share our thoughts about the memorial. So Stephanie, what do you want to say?
Well, first of all, as you can see, it's just a beautiful autumn day here in DC, down here near the tidal basin. And I tell you, there's no more beautiful place to be. And what a wonderful place to put this memorial for Dr. King amongst so many other great leaders of our country.
I never would have thought, and I know Stephanie and I talked about this, but I never would have thought we had an African-American president in the White House and an African-American standing as a memorial on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. We are so happy to be living in this city. So many people everywhere else don't have this opportunity. But we're only a few minutes away from where we live. And come down here and see and witness history. So we're so happy to be here. I mean, there's so much, the inscriptions of all his sayings, of all his speeches are all around the wall. And of course there was some controversy with Maya Angelou and talking about the other inscription on the other side of the monument. But it doesn't matter because he is a drum major for hope and history and everything. He was definitely a drum major for righteousness. So regardless of whether he thought it at that time, he definitely was. And that's why you see all the people here, and this is for a memorial forever and ever. You will have this memorial here. But standing for his legacy, his life, and all that he lived and died for. So now we're going to show you some other areas around because we have a lot of history within ourselves. Even though we were young when he marched and when he died, we have some of our own thoughts we want to share as well.
All right. Well, you know, we're recalling that time. I'm sure, you know, those of us who were alive at that time during the riots when Dr. King got assassinated, we remember something about it, no matter what age we were. And I think I was about 5 years old. It was 1968.
You were about 5, yeah.
Yeah, we were about 5 years old at that time. And I remember just the outbreak of the riots because where I lived, I didn't live far from where I guess you would say the epicenter of some of those outbreaks. Those riots took place on 8th and 8th Street in Northeast DC. I lived up the street just a few blocks at 7th and C. And all I remember, I kept hearing sirens and police sirens and fire trucks and smelling tear gas and hearing glass break and hearing shouting. And I didn't quite understand what was going on. I knew, I'd heard of Dr. King and I knew he had been, somebody killed him, but I didn't quite put the two together that the riots were because of that too. It took me a minute and it's like, oh yeah, this is because of that. And I tell you, I have a scar on my left thigh that will forever be a reminder of those riots because where we lived in our house. So we had one of these old-fashioned milk crates in front of my house where the milkman delivered the milk. Remember back in the day? We're dating ourselves now. But it had seal test on it. But you had to lift the lid up, but the lid had sharp edges on it. And I remember standing up on the lid of the milk crate trying to look down 8th Street. Of course I couldn't see. I was too short. It was too far down. But I figured if I got up here, I could see more of what was going on and get the source, see the source of where all the tear gas and noise and sirens were coming from. And I jumped up and down on the crate, and I fell off of it. And I didn't realize at the time when I fell that I cut my leg. And my grandmother happened to be outside in the front yard with me, and she saw the blood running down my leg, and she said, "Oh my God!" And thank God we lived right across the street from a hospital at that time. I forgot the name. I think it was called Rogers Memorial Hospital or something at the time. It's been named so many different things now, but she rushed me to the hospital. But I have this scar on my left leg as an eternal reminder of those riots when Dr. King died. He was such a great man.
Yes. Now I'll tell you where mine starts, I guess, is his assassination as well, because I was in nursery school, and I remember my mother pulling me out because I didn't like school, even nursery school. I always wanted to go home. So when I had an opportunity to go home, because they were letting the kids out early because of the riots, and everybody was just in such turmoil and so upset and so sad, and I just remember my mother coming to get me from nursery school, and I'm like, okay, good, I get to go home. But then I remember seeing over and over and over again on television his last speech, his mountaintop speech. They kept repeating it over and over again. And now I understand after 9/11 why they don't want to show the towers going down all the time, because as a child, you're not understanding real time or video and taping and all that. So I thought he was still alive. I thought he was still talking about what was going on. And so I didn't understand that he was already gone. And I said, wow, I thought he was still here. So I remember his speech because they said it over and over again. It was a powerful message, a powerful prophetic message. And I remember I wasn't as close as Stephanie was to the riots, but I was on the other side of the bridge in Southeast DC in Anacostia. And I was able to see all the tanks going through town steadily, even way after the assassination, way after the main part of the riot. So it was amazing time. It was a lot of turmoil, but as a child you can absorb all of that. But I remember the impact he had on all of us, and it was very powerful.
Okay, so in addition to what we had to share, what I shared and what Julie shared personally about what we remember from Dr. King's assassination and the riots that took place afterwards, of course there were a whole lot of things that he did way before that led up to that, a whole lot of dates and times and histories that will forever, mark this great man's life. And one of the ones that I wanted to point out was in between March and April of 1962, which was the year we were both born. Yay. That's when Dr. King was arrested in Birmingham, Alabama, doing a demonstration, and when he was thrown in jail, and he wrote his famous letters from the Birmingham jail. And I think this part of his life really, to me, defines his greatness and his humility and his willing to sacrifice and die for a cause. He reminds me of Paul. Paul was thrown in jail, beaten for doing the will of God, following the call of God. Dr. King was no different. This is a man who truly followed his purpose and his calling, and he was willing to suffer for it. He was willing to be persecuted for it, but he still did not let that stop him. He continued to forge ahead and to write what was in his heart so that he could forever leave this legacy to us and to encourage people. So that's what that stands out to me, was his letters that he wrote from the Birmingham jail. And of course, in 1963, August 1963, I was already a year old. Julie, you were almost a year old. Almost. And we're not standing too far from where the famous March on Washington took place over there on the mall. We can't quite see it, but we're right down here in that same spot. So this was a perfect location to put his memorial.
Absolutely. Yep. And what amazed me about all of, in terms of the memorial, I mean, you can't build a memorial this way in only, say, a few years. But in my mind, I thought it was only a few years. But really, November 2nd, 1983, the holiday bill, a measure proposed in every legislative session from 1968 by John Conyers, is signed by President Ronald Reagan, declaring his birthday a national holiday. However, the first legal holiday nationwide did not occur till January 20th, 1986. But then that spurred January 1984, when George Seeley is the catalyst for convening the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity brothers, Alfred Bailey, Oscar Little, Eddie Mason, and John Harvey, to propose building a national memorial to Dr. King. Their proposal is presented at the fraternity's board of directors meeting under the administration of General President Ozell Sutton. And then November 12, 1996, President Clinton signs the congressional legislation proposing the establishment of a memorial in the District of Columbia to honor Dr. King. So from 1983 all the way to 1996, and then January 10th, 1998, the National Capital Memorial Commission votes to recommend Area 1. These are congressional gardens in the tidal basin to have a memorial. It's amazing. We love it. I mean, it's a beautiful memorial to his legacy and to all that he lived and died for, and that all the people he impacted, our great nation and our great world, as a matter of fact. So I mean, all the people from all over the world are impacted by what he stood for in really just a few short years. The impact, just like Stephanie said, as an apostle, as a prophet, standing and doing God's work in kingdom business, even though it looked like social business, but it was really kingdom business he was doing. So we're just thankful to be here and just share our time and our moments and our stories with you. Well, we hope you enjoyed our little trip down memory lane at Dr. King's Memorial. We hope by this time you'd have gotten down to the memorial yourself, taking your kids, your families, your seniors down to see this historical memorial. We never would have thought that in this day we would have a memorial to an African American. And it's awesome. It's a wonderful thing to see because it really represents all of what was going on during his time, during the 60s, which was a very turbulent time, and in the African American community and in this country. So we urge everybody to go down because he was truly a modern day prophet.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, just looking at the monument and how his image is carved out of that mountain, it just, to me, it just symbolizes, you know, different things that, you know, you have this man with a strong character being hewn out of, you know, a stone, you know, a rock, but then also, like you said, that, you know, coming out of those turbulent times, and you think of, you know, rocky times, of hard places. So it has too many. So I really like how they designed that memorial to Dr. King.
Exactly. Yeah. And one other thing too, and unfortunately I don't have all the quote, but I know there was been all this controversy that Maya Angelou mentioned about the quote in terms of being a drum major for justice.
Right.
They are going to change that.
Yes.
I really didn't think they would ever change it. I mean, once it's in stone, I figured it was in stone, but they're going to actually change it and put his entire quote of being a drum major. But because he always said, if you call me a drum major. If you call me a drum major, I'm a drum major for blah 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 blah.
Exactly.
Which was awesome for justice and righteousness, and so it's going to be good.
Exactly, and I think they should. I mean, if they're going to quote the man, quote what he said accurately. Exactly, quote it accurately. Yeah, I agree.
Because he was not. I mean, he was a proud man, but not in that way. Not an arrogant sounding person.
Exactly.
But I'm glad that we lived through that time. Not only lived at that time to actually get to see a little history, but actually live through it because it was a very, very ugly time.
Yes.
And we, you know, Stephanie and I got to see little snippets, and thank God we can still remember little snippets of what it was going on during that time with the tanks and all that. But, you know, thank God we made it through and we're moving on.
Exactly.
Now let's talk about the current hot topics.
There's some hot ones.
Yes, and even things that Dr. King might still be talking about or even be involved in. And the first topic I wanted to get to was the Occupy movement. I mean, Dr. King was about a movement, the civil rights movement, and I think if he lived, he would definitely be supporting the Occupy movement as well.
I agree.
And I mean, they just started that in Wall Street back in October of 2011. And it's just ballooned all over the place.
Yes, it has. And as you and I know, we're right in the midst of it. You know, based on where we work in one of the major locations, of course, where a lot of the focal point is at McPherson Square. And we know that come noon tomorrow, the protesters, they have, you know, rules they have to abide by, where they have to be out of there by noon tomorrow, or else they could be arrested. You know, their belongings could be confiscated, and whatever the park police deem as trash, they could throw it away.
Well, these protesters are hardcore, so they said just arrest me.
Yeah.
And so I'm okay, you know, and I think we're going to see a lot of arrests tomorrow, you know, unfortunately.
I agree. But what I think the Occupy protesters have done, I think their voice and what they stand for has caused a lot of people to stand up, you know, for their rights. Because just recently we know that certain banks, you know, were going to start charging higher fees for their services, and the consumers have said, no, we're not going to do it. And of course, people threaten to, you know, close accounts and what have you. And I work right down the street from, you know, McPherson Square, and I heard that some of the protesters several weeks ago, back in November, came into one of the major banks and just trashed the lobby just to make a statement. Yeah, the police came, but my understanding is that nobody got arrested. But again, and I even saw them marching up and down the street, standing in front of stock exchange buildings that's across the street, you know, from where I work, and they were protesting. So they're definitely making their voices heard.
Well, the one thing I always want to know is, I go, what's the purpose of this? And you talked about people standing up for their rights, economic rights and all that, and their consumer rights. And I said, but other than that, I'm like, okay, what's the success of all this? I mean, I'm glad they did it because we have to do that sometimes. So I went on the website, and so this is their definition, this is their goal. And the goal of the Occupy movement is to separate money from politics and improving the country's infrastructure to fix healthcare, education, environment, and the economy, thereby shifting the power from the wealthiest 1% to the underrepresented 99%. So that's what their whole MO is about.
Exactly. Right.
But it really has made us more aware of the unfairness and disparities of the economics in this country. But other than that, I'm not really sure, because there's been a lot of tension, there's been a lot of arrest, and a lot of tear gas thrown, and like you said, you know, trash in a bank. I mean, you know, it's just been a lot of violence surrounding it. So I'm glad they did it, but there's been a lot of negative things around it too.
Yeah, I think the old adage, if you keep what is the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yes.
And that's the main purpose of this. Make your voices heard. Who knows how long it's going to take before change comes about, but I respect them in the sense that they're not just lying down, and they're speaking for all of us. Even though all of us aren't protesting, they're speaking for the whole country.
They're exercising their First Amendment right. They want to work. Many of them don't work, or they're standing up for people who you know, want to work. But the parks are just in a really bad space right now in terms of security, in terms of cleanliness, and that's what a lot of people are really concerned about. But I know the protesters have worked with the National Park Service, and they're trying to rectify that. So we'll see what happens, because in some people's case, it looks like the Middle East refugee camp. In some of the cases, that's what they're saying it looks like to them, and it doesn't look pretty. But I guess protesting and standing up for what you believe and trying to better something doesn't always look pretty. So we wish them the best, and we hope it does really make a change in this country, and we'll see.
Exactly.
Next topic is Walmart in DC, good or bad? I'm not sure.
I know. You know, and looking at the amount of Walmarts they want to build, 6 now. At first it started out with 4.
4 definite.
Yeah, 4 definite. Now they've increased. I think they just announced, you know, about a month ago or whatever, that they were going to add 2 more. I'm like, why does Washington, D.C. need 6 Walmarts?
I don't understand that, but Union Square, Brightwood, New York Avenue, and 58th and East Capitol Streets.
Yes.
And like I said, the other 2, I know there's going to be another one in Southeast,
right,
as well,
exactly.
Anacostia. So I'm like, okay.
And the other one in Fort Totten.
Okay.
So so all the Walmarts are going to be in wards 4, 5, 6, and 7. That should be easy for you to remember, because they're all in a row. So that's where all of them are going to be located.
Okay. And 8.
There's going to be one. Oh yeah. Yes, okay. Yeah. 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Can't get you Ward 8.
That's right. That's right. So.
Well, it's supposed to bring in $183 million a year to the city. We shall see.
Well, yeah, they said that with the retail stores, they're supposed to create 1,800 jobs. And it's supposed, yes, 1,800 jobs is the approximate number of jobs that said it's supposed to increase. And the city should reap about $15 million in property taxes, you know, from the media. So economically, there are definitely some benefits. But the thing that I like that the community did is that they didn't just let Walmart move in without a peep and say, okay, yeah, just bring Walmart in. Because I don't know if you've seen some of the signs around the city that says Walmart respect DC. We know Walmart is the largest retail chain in the world. So what are they going to bring to the city? So some of the foes and the residents that are in the areas where they're going to be moving, they had Walmart to sign what's called a community benefits agreement. At first, when this was proposed to them, Walmart wasn't too happy about that because no other retailers had to do it. But in November of last year, Walmart did sign that agreement. And and basically, here's some of the 8 points that show the benefits of what that agreement is going to do. First, they're going to look at small, local, and minority contractors to help them build these stores. Okay, and then they're going to focus on workforce development programs that will train the residents, minorities, at-risk youth, release convicts, and veterans to work in the store. So I think that's really good. We know how hard it is for our ex-convicts to get work. Convicts, not convents. That's what I said. And they're going to try to, they're supposed to fill most of these positions with residents from DC. So that's good right there. And they have agreed not to sell any guns or ammunition in the store, because some Walmart, it depends on where it's located. They may sell those, and they're going to seek out local retailers to provide goods like coffee shops and things like that. Well, the big question is, will the Walmarts kill off existing businesses? Because they did a study in Chicago from 2006 to 2008, and 28% of the businesses within a 4-mile radius
failed because the Walmart took hold. Now, they did have success with Target up in Columbia Heights, but that's just one store. And that's why I'm thinking, I said, why can't we just have one or maybe just two?
Well, I think that's why they put this this benefit here where it says Walmart is going to seek out local retailers to provide goods and services within their stores. Okay. So like if you had a local coffee shop or some other business, their Walmart is going to try to partner with them so they won't run the average business person or a small businessman out of business.
Another really good thing they are going to do is it'll bring fresh produce to the food deserts in this city. Yeah. Because a lot of places you just can't get fresh produce. So that'll be a good thing. So these will be eating healthier, and hopefully more people will be put back to work and more tax money coming into the city. And so we shall see, but we're starting in 13 for the first 4. So we'll see how that works too, and we'll see what Walmart does for us.
Okay. All right, Walmart.
Now, Kim Kardashian versus Tyler Perry. Did you ever think? I would have never thought so. But here we go. So I'm going to read, it's all about her being in his upcoming movie called The Marriage Counselor. And everybody, well not everybody, but a lot of people are up in arms about it. So I just want to read one comment that I saw online that will really set the tone for this whole conversation. This person says, Mr. Perry, as much as we the middle class black folks love you, I have made up my mind on your next movie. Me and my wife and children will not be supporting you on this one. You are way too classy to have this untalented lady named Kim Kardashian in your film. She only uses our black brothers for money and sex. What kind of role model is she? And again, sir, why? All black actresses out there needing work, and you choose this negative person. How sad. And what a slap in our face as black people. But I guess because you have all your millions, now you don't care how we the people feel after all the ones we've helped you out make these millions. Wow, do the right thing and pull her from the movie, please, Mr. Perry.
Okay. So that's interesting. All right. It is very interesting. Now, you know, Kim Kardashian does need help, okay? But I'm not mad with Tyler Perry for hiring her to be in his film. And besides that, he is going to have some top name black actors in there. Brandy's going to be in there. Vanessa Williams is going to be in there. Lance Gross is going to be in there. And I know there's all this fuss about, okay, her having a leading role. Well, her role in the film is that she's going to be working for this matchmaker who is Vanessa Williams, who apparently owns the business.
I thought she plays the marriage counselor.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. It just says she's going to be working for her a match. So maybe she is the marriage counselor that in this matchmaking company or something like that. But one of the things that Tyler Perry said is that literally thousands of young people follow her. Now, I'm not saying, no, I don't agree that she's a good role model either. And Tyler even said, I wasn't aware that so many young people adore her. So Tyler's trying to pull in a younger audience, and she happens to have quite a big following. Okay? Yes. Yeah. So, and that's what he's trying to do. This is about marketing as well. This is about business. And the whole message of the movie is the consequences of your decisions, your choices. So you know what? Just like I said in the beginning of my statement, she needs some help. So hopefully if she hangs around the cast enough and hangs around Tyler Perry enough, she'll get the message and start looking at the error of her ways. I'm not mad with you, Tyler. Go ahead, hire her.
Yeah, I mean, because well, you know how she got big in the first place, right? She made some kind of tape. They're saying she made some kind of tape with Ray J, who is Brandy's brother, and so supposedly that's what propelled her into the national star that she is, because everybody watched this tape. And so that, and then everybody's mad at her because she canceled her wedding. I'm like, you know, sister, if you gotta cancel your wedding, you gotta cancel your wedding. So if you gotta do that, you know, but a lot of people just thought it was all fake, but people got emotionally drawn in. I'm not even sure if there'd been such an outrage if she had just canceled this big wedding and everybody got economically and emotionally drawn in, and all of a sudden it just kind of got left. It's like, wait a minute, what are you doing? And so I think a lot of people just are really angry about it. We brought it up, and just our family and friends at a brunch one day, and man, my family was like, yeah, I mean, that's ridiculous. Look at all you black women out of work, you know, blah, 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 blah. And we understand that the black women are out of work, but this one role is not going to employ everyone. And believe me, just as you just mentioned, Tyler has put so many black people to work.
Don't forget that. He has. Don't diss the brother now, because
because you know he hires one black actors.
Yeah.
I mean white, or whatever.
I mean, you gotta have a mix. You gotta have a mix.
Sure.
You know, and like you said, she's gonna be in a positive environment and with a positive message. So
exactly,
we shall see how it works out. So we never know. And another hot one right now is Tuskegee Airmen and the new movie called Red Tails, which I've seen and Stephanie saw, which I thought was really good. A movie 23 years in the making.
That's
by
incredible.
George. Yeah, it's by George Lucas, and thank you, Mr. Lucas, for doing this. There's a lot of comments about that. Some people like the HBO version better than this one and that kind of thing. But I'd say anything that's going to tell our story, I don't care whether it's on a big screen, little screen, wherever it is, on a billboard, it's going to tell our history and a proud history. Let's do it. Put it out there.
That's the word, proud. I'm like, how did you feel? For those of you who saw it, how did you feel when the movie ended? I felt proud. And I just loved, how the resilience, the resolve that our men had. It's like, we can do it. We're determined. And I like the leadership that they show, in the Colonel, Terrence Howard, played the Colonel. And, just standing up for the men. It's like, we don't care what you think as far as him speaking to top brass, thinking we couldn't do it. And yeah, we can't do it, and we did do it.
They had to face death. I mean, even though they were escorting, for those of you who don't know, the Tuskegee, look it up, please. The Tuskegee Airmen were escort pilots for the bombers in World War II. And because they were black, they weren't the bombers themselves in most cases. There was a bomb unit as well. We don't get to hear about that very often. But they were separated on a different base. They had to face racism right in the midst of the war. And then when they had to, before they left, they had to face it. They faced it during the war. And then after the war was over, as heroes, even though we knew they were heroes, they didn't have necessarily a hero's welcome. Then because they were still in a racist society at that point in time. But a lot of these men, I don't believe, came from a lot of racism in their own communities, because they came from far and wide to go to the Tuskegee program, because it was supposed to be an experiment. That's why Terrence Howard's character, the lieutenant colonel, had to go to Washington, go to the Pentagon to fight to keep the program going, because they would have shut it down. Because they're saying, oh, they're just not keeping up, they're just not doing what they're supposed to do. And until the lieutenant colonel had to fight for them at the Pentagon, did they allow them to get better planes and to go out there and do what they had to do. Yeah, exactly. And and they're speaking about the racism. One of the points that I like that the movie brought out is that even in having some of those Tuskegee Airmen tail the bombers, and be their protection, while they had to fly and go to their sites, even though there still was prejudice and racism, in the end, those white soldiers still had to respect them and the ability that they had and what they could do. Absolutely. And so, I appreciate that point being brought out in the movie. They never lost one bomber that they had to escort, and they only lost 66 men during combat. I think it was over 1,000 Tuskegee Airmen in total, or something like that. It was quite a few, and only losing 66. Of course, that's sad to lose any of them, but only 66 because they knew what they were doing. They were brilliant men. They're still living, and there's so many that were able to give documentaries and stories and tell their stories. So there's so many different places you can find out about the Tuskegee Airmen, and I do urge you to find out. There are places everywhere. Just look it up and find out about their history, because so many other communities talk about their history on a regular basis. And so that ends Life Matters for today, Hot Topics. We have a whole lot more we could have talked about today, but if you have a hot topic or want to comment on anything that we just commented on, please email us at lifematters@gmail.com, and we'll see you next time. Keep talking.